In Revelation, there is a book that is sealed with 7 seals. In Daniel, there is a book that is sealed up until the time of the end. In Isaiah, there is also a book that is sealed. Understanding any one of these will help us to understand the other if this book is the same book in each one. Daniel was told to seal up the book until the time of the end, and then knowledge would increase. In verse 10, it goes on to say that the wise will understand. Well, I think that understanding has to do with this knowledge increasing. So this isn't talking about scientific knowledge increasing. It's talking about spiritual knowledge increasing, the knowledge and understanding of scriptures. Let's see if that makes sense in Isaiah, where it says that there is a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. Now, if this book represents scriptures, and it is sealed up until the time of the end, and then the wise would understand, then it seems that all along we can't expect to have really understood it, but in the end, the wise will understand. Now, this book, the scriptures, is delivered to one that is learned. Well, the one that is learned has been taught, and the one that's taught says that he can't read it or understand it because it is sealed. Then in verse 12, the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. So this one needs a teacher. He doesn't say the book is sealed, but he realizes that he can't understand it without a teacher. Now, why would scriptures be sealed so they can't be understood to the one that has been taught, but not sealed to the one that hasn't been taught? The answer seems to be in verse 13, where it says, Their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. The teachers are teaching according to their own understanding, and if error is taught, then the error is going to be passed on to the one that's been taught. So as the one that is learned is trying to read and understand the scriptures, he can't really understand it. He may think so, and I don't think this is saying that he is literally going to say that he can't understand it or that he can't read it. But Isaiah is presenting this paradox, this idea that the teaching has caused the people to not be able to understand it. In verse 24, Isaiah ends up agreeing with Daniel. Daniel had said that in the end, the wise would understand. Isaiah says that they also, that erred in spirit, shall come to understanding, and they that murmured shall learn doctrine. This seems to correspond to both the learned and the unlearned. The one that has been learned is in error. The one that erred in spirit shall come to understanding. The one that couldn't understand or couldn't read because of his teaching will end up understanding. The one that didn't learn, it seems that it's because he murmured. He perhaps murmured against the teachers, and this one shall learn doctrine. He'll now have a teacher that understands, and so now he can be taught. Now let's take these things into Revelation. There's the book that is sealed with 7 seals. It's sealed to the ones that have been taught because of the things that they've been taught. They can't understand because they've been taught error. And according to Daniel, it's sealed up until the time of the end, but then the wise would understand. Both Daniel and Isaiah ended up saying that the wise would understand, or that there would be understanding. So that seems to imply that as the seals are coming off of the book, it is becoming understood, because in the end, the wise would understand. Now, in chapter 10 of Revelation, there's a little book. Earlier in the chapter, there was one described as Christ coming clothed in a cloud with an open book in his hand. Now, is this little book, the open book, the same book that was sealed? It seems that it is, because the seals were coming off. All 7 seals were off, and the last seal contained the 7 trumpets. And all of the trumpets have now blown except for the last one, which is ready to blow. And then there's this open book in his hand. Now, some wouldn't want to accept the implications of this. It's not according to what they've been taught. So they would say that this book in chapter 10 that's open is not the same book that was sealed. Well, why not? The seals have come off. What's holding it closed? Reasoning would say that it's the same book. And, well, if it's the same book, then, like I said, there's some implications of it. Well, there's Ezekiel, I think, makes the tie to prove that the book in chapter 5 that was sealed with 7 seals is the same one that is now open in chapter 10. Ezekiel has a book that is spread before him. He doesn't say that it was sealed, but he says some things that help us to make the connection between the sealed book in chapter 5 of Revelation and the open book in chapter 10. In Ezekiel, the book is written within and without. The 7 sealed book in Revelation chapter 5 was written within and on the backside. That sounds like the same thing. So that's an indication that it's the same book. Now, Ezekiel in the next chapter, just a few verses later, makes a connection with the open book in chapter 10. In chapter 10, the book, when it was eaten, was in his mouth sweet as honey. In Ezekiel, it says about the same thing. In my mouth as sweet as honey for sweetness. So this is the same book in Ezekiel chapter 2, and a few verses later in chapter 3. It's the same book. If it's the same book as the one in chapter 5 and also the same book as the one in chapter 10 of Revelation, then those are the same book. The sealed book and the open book are the same one. So from what we've learned from Daniel and Isaiah, the wise have now understood. It's the time of the end. The wise will now understand. The book is understood by the one that was taught because he's come to understanding. Things have been understood now. And the one that hasn't been taught is now learning doctrine. One more thing, the book was written within and without, or on the inside and the outside. I have heard it said that this is because there was so much that happened that it all couldn't fit inside, so it was also written on the outside. Well, I think it means something different than that. On the inside, anything that was written on the inside of a sealed book can't be read, or should we say understood, until the seals come off and it's open. What's written on the outside can be read even when the book is sealed. So what I think this means is that the things written on the outside is really the literal reading of it. You can read it without understanding it. The real understanding, though, is on the inside, and the book is sealed. And that can only be understood after the seals come off at the right time. Now, if your understanding of Revelation doesn't agree with this, maybe it's because of the things that you've been taught, or maybe it's because you need a teacher that understands.